My bookshelf looks so awful. Hey besties and welcome back to my channel. For anyone who's new here, I'm Sophia and I love reading romance books. Now today my bookshelf is looking a little bit disheveled and there is good reason for that, because over on my Instagram I asked you guys for specific book tropes that you want book recommendations for. And so I have pulled off my shelf, I think, a little over 40 books for all of these recommendations, and yeah, I'm really excited to give them all to you. I also do just want to say I'm really sorry if at any point in this video the vibes are a little bit down. I'm currently a big ball of anxiety because I'm waiting for a phone call from the hospital regarding my wisdom teeth surgery tomorrow. I am pre-filming this because I don't know what my recovery is going to be like, so there's just a lot of anxiety happening, but it's okay. Hopefully this video will still be good, it'll still be fun. Hopefully you will still find some really good book recommendations, and yeah, let's get into it. So a lot of the books that I'm recommending in today's video are part of a larger series, but they can all, I'm pretty sure all of them can be read as standalones, so you don't have to wade through the entire series to get to that specific book. So the first trope is one of my favorite tropes ever. It just makes me feel so like warm and fuzzy and really happy. The first trope we are going to be doing is found family. So first up, I actually want to recommend a book that I finished a few days ago and absolutely loved. This is Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. This book is set in a war college where there is scribes, writers, and healers, and there's also infantry, and he is the best in the school. He's the best writer in the school, and she was supposed to be in the scribe quadrant but has been forced into the writers quadrant by her mother. It's a really fun, super fast-paced, very engaging story, and there is this beautiful theme of friendship and found family woven throughout the book. I absolutely adore the friendship group in this book so much, and they all have each other's back, which is just so amazing. Next up, I want to recommend Heartless by Elsie Silver. This is a nanny romance, but it is so much more than that. Willa really fits in with Cade's family and also his extended family. They all kind of live together on this little ranch, and it's just adorable and so sweet. I obviously am doing multiple books for the specific trope as well, because, you know, maybe you guys have read some of these, maybe you haven't. So I just want to give you a selection. So the next trope is another one of my favorites. It is forced proximity, and I have 3 recommendations for you for this one. So first up is Taste by Melanie Harlow. The 2 main characters in this book have a shared history, and they actually work together, but like not closely, not intimately, and they have a lot of hostility towards each other. And so the forced proximity comes in when they get stranded in a motel room together in a snowstorm. This book does have the only one bed trope, and it was really fun, and at no point was I bored. Like, the scenery was the same for like a good third of the book, but it still kept pace and was really fun. Next up is another popular one. This is Mile High by Liz Tomford. Our heroine in this book is a flight attendant on our hero's hockey team's private plane. So naturally there is a lot of forced proximity as they're stuck on the plane together in multiple scenes, and he is just so adorably annoying. Every time he buzzes her on the little flight attendant thing and she comes strutting out, she got really pissed off with him, but I thought it was cute. And my last recommendation for forced proximity is Hail Mary by Candy Steiner. This one is a college second chance football romance, college football second chance romance, however you want to phrase it, where she is forced to move in with him and some of his teammates after the pipes in her house burst. This one is so good, and I absolutely adore the dynamic between her and all of the football players. So this next trope is another fan favorite. It is, of course, enemies to lovers, and I actually have 7 recommendations for you on this one. I have 3 contemporary and 4 dark. Since kind of like experiencing enemies to lovers in dark romance, I really struggle to find contemporary romances with enemies to lovers because it's always just like a dislike to lovers. So it's very hard to kind of class it, which is why I've split them up into contemporary and dark. So I hope that kind of makes sense for you guys as well. So my first recommendation for a more contemporary enemies to lovers romance is The Simple Wild by K.A. Tucker. This one is set in a small town in Alaska and takes place between an arrogant pilot and a girl who he assumes to be a bit of a snobby city girl, but she's really the opposite of that. I loved this book so much, and it's just honestly perfect. My next recommendation is It Happened One Summer by Tessa Bailey. This one has a very similar dynamic to The Simple Wild in that he is a grumpy, arrogant guy, and she is this sort of rich city girl who who has been forced to go to these small towns to kind of gain some life experience. We are getting through these so quick, but that is a very good thing because there's so many recommendations for me to get through today. But my next recommendation for you is Taste by Melanie Harlow. As I mentioned earlier, both characters in this have a shared history and a lot of angst and hostility towards each other, which they do end up sorting out in that forced proximity moment. But yeah, their personalities really just clash and it makes for some delicious arguments and banter. And now on to my darker recommendations for enemies to lovers. Please, pretty please, check trigger warnings on these ones. Thank you very much. Now, my first recommendation for a darker enemies to lovers is actually Fourth Wing, again by Rebecca Yarros. Her mother essentially gave a death sentence to his family and his people in general, and so he's out to get revenge on her. There's a lot of delicious fight scenes, some great arguments, and I love the tension between these two. Then we have Brutal Prince by Sophie Lark. This wouldn't be an enemies to lovers recommendation portion of this video if I didn't throw this book in. The two characters in this one are bound by an arranged marriage. She is super sassy, super fiery, and he is a very quiet, conservative businessman, so their personalities really clash. She also set his house on fire the first time they met, and also at the altar tried to kill him, so there's that. Then we have Things I Wanted to Say But Never Did by Monica Murphy. This one is a bully romance, and I don't totally remember the plot for this one, but I'm pretty sure the enemies to lovers ensues when he steals her diary that houses all of her deepest, darkest secrets and goes on to blackmail her with it. This one is super duper spicy, very toxic, and it's very fun. And my final recommendation for enemies to lovers romances is Crow by A. Zavarelli. This one is set in the Boston underworld, the mafia of Boston, and she essentially believes that he is responsible for the disappearance of her best friend and kind of tries to take him down. This book is a really quick, fast-paced, fun read, and I would really recommend it. This next trope is bodyguard romance, and it is one that I absolutely love, but I've only ever managed to read one book for it, and that book is Bound by Temptation by Cora Riley. This takes place between the capo of New York's kind of second-hand man and most trusted soldier and the capo's wife's little sister. Obviously, the capo trusts his soldier to never lay a hand on her little sister, but oh my god, does he lay hands on her. This book was incredible. The forbiddenness of it, the sneaking around, it was so freaking good, and I really want to find another one just like it because I want to relive this so bad. Next up, shock horror is another trope that I absolutely love. You and I are really in tune. Now the next trope is Grumpy Sunshine. The first book that I have for this trope is Underlock by Mariana Zapata. She is the receptionist at his tattoo parlor, and he is just an outright asshole. She's just there to make some cash and spend some time with her brother, but he is determined to drive her out. He really is the biggest dick, and I spent quite a good portion of this book hating his guts, but just know that he gets very protective once he opens up to her, and he really did win me over by the end. Next up is All Roads Lead Here, again by Mariana Zapata. She really knows how to write a grumpy hero. So in this one, our hero's son puts up an advertisement for rent of their garage apartment, and the heroine responds like, oh my god, I need a place to stay, this sounds great. And so she ends up rocking up, and our hero, Rhodes, comes out of his house and is just kind of like, what the fuck are you doing on my property? Who are you? So obviously they have a little misunderstanding, but just trust me when I say this one is fantastic. He spends like a good half of the book just being grumpy and grouchy towards her, but he's such the biggest sweetheart once they like work through their issues and like warm up to each other. Oh my god, I adore Rhodes so much. And obviously our heroine Aurora is the biggest sweetie, and she is so nice and so giving and so caring to Rhodes and his son, which is really cute. And then finally, for our Grumpy Sunshine recommendations, I have Heartless by Elsie Saw. This is the nanny romance that I mentioned earlier. Cade is super grumpy and has been stung by some of his previous relationships, so he is super apprehensive for Willa to come in and help out with his son, but he just has so much responsibility on his shoulders. He is like the manager, the top dog of his family's ranch, and so he just doesn't have time to look after Luke, and he is just very grouchy about that fact and so closed off. But of course, Willa and her sweet little personality worms her way into his heart, and this one ends up being very cute. And Cade is like, Cade is hot. He is grumpy as hell, but he is hot. And then we actually have the opposite opposite of the trope that I've just talked about, reverse grumpy sunshine, when the heroine is the grump and the hero is the sunshine. The only recommendation I have for this is Icebreaker by Hannah Grace. I really want more books with this dynamic, but I just haven't found them yet. So after a prank goes wrong, the hockey team and the figure skaters end up having to share an ice rink, which leads to a lot of tension between the two. Anastasia is just really grumpy by nature. That's just who she is. Whereas Nathan is a literal golden retriever. He is sunshine incarnate, and I would do anything for that man. The next trope that I have some recommendations for is fake dating. Now this one I haven't read too much for. I tend to not really read a lot of fake dating romances, but the ones that I have for you are good. Trust me, they are good. I am going to kind of lump these two in together because they are very similar, but the first one is Blindside by Candy Steiner, and my other recommendation is The Deal by Elle Kennedy. Both of these books use fake dating for the characters to garner the attention of someone else, a different love interest, but they obviously end up falling for each other, which is one of my favorite elements of a fake dating romance. They also both college sports romances. This one is NFL and this one is hockey, and Garrett Graham, that man, oh my god. This next trope is another one that I absolutely adore, and the person said single parent is my fave. I feel like that's an unpopular opinion. I would have to agree, both that it's an unpopular opinion and that it is a fave. I love this trope so much. I feel like, I don't know, just seeing like a grumpy dad be really sweet with his little daughters or his little son, it really gets me going. And then seeing a single mum like overcome adversity and be so strong, I love all of it. I am gonna kind of speed run 3 out of the 4 recommendations for this one because I do mention them either previously or later in the video. But first up, I have Ignite by Melanie Harlow. In this one, Dex is a firefighter and a single dad to 2 absolutely adorable little girls. They really won me over, and oh my god, the dynamic is just perfect, and he's grumpy and he's protective and he's grouchy and he just, oh, he is so fine, and I love this book so much. Then again, we have Heartless by Elsie Silver. Cade is a single dad in this one. He's a cowboy, it's small town, and Luke, his son, is absolutely adorable. Then once again, we have All Roads Lead Here by Mariana Zapata. In this one, Rose is a single father to a 15-year-old son. So this one's dynamic is a little bit different with the child being a little bit older, but I still had a very good time with this one, and Rhodes is so fine. And also the friendship that forms between the son and the heroine is just, it's so precious. And then last, for single parent, I have a single mum for you. This is Juniper Hill by Devney Perry. In this one, our heroine Memphis is on the run from her old life with her son. She winds up living in our hero's garage apartment and also working in the same hotel as him, so there's some very nice forced proximity in there as well for you, but this one is just adorable, and by the end, seeing the big whole happy family is just really sweet and heartwarming. This next trope is Marriage of Convenience, and I wasn't sure if you would classify arranged marriage within Marriage of Convenience, so one of my recommendations is a little bit iffy, but the other one is Marriage of Convenience. So the first Marriage of Convenience recommendation I have for you is the Marriage of Convenience that I'm certain is Marriage of Convenience. This is Jasper Vale by Devney Perry. In this one, our 2 characters accidentally get married in Vegas and decide to stay together for their own personal benefits. Our heroine stays to prove to her family that she's settling down and that she's ready for the responsibility of taking over their family hotel, and our hero to make his ex-wife jealous. This next one is the one that I'm not too sure if you'd class it as Marriage of Convenience or arranged marriage, but it is Brutal Prince, again by Sophie Lark. In this one, these 2 get married to unite and strengthen their family's reign over Chicago. Now the next trope that I have some recommendations for is childhood best friends to enemies to lovers. Now this one I had to think long and hard about because I typically steer clear of like childhood friends to lovers and friends to lovers romances, but I did come up with 2. The first recommendation I have for you is Rewrite Our Story by Kat Singleton. My dog is walking out the hallway. You are so noisy. You're so noisy. You are so noisy. She's got no idea what's going on. There's not a single thought behind those eyes. You're just gonna stand there and watch me? You're gonna sit there and watch me? You're just gonna sit there and watch me? Okay, you can do that. So So rewrite our story is a childhood best friends to lovers to enemies to lovers romance. So our hero and heroine's families in this book grew up essentially alongside each other. They were also neighbours, but they were just very, very close. And so naturally they became friends, and a relationship ended up happening over the summer of her 18th birthday. It was a little bit of a summer fling, which did end in heartbreak. And then later in the book, she is back in town and there is a lot of angst. There is a lot of hostility between the two as they kind of come back into each other's lives. Then the other recommendation I have for you is Hail Mary by Candy Steiner. This is childhood best friends to enemies to lovers, so it fits the trope perfectly. A hero and heroine in this one actually met online playing video games. I think they met playing Call of Duty, and she actually knew his identity, but he didn't know hers just because of the gamer tags and whatever, and they became very, very, very close friends. But one day, Mary, our heroine, tried to out herself to him to kind of like establish an in-person relationship as well, and he basically shut her down entirely. And then obviously fast forward a few years, they're neighbours, her pipes burst and she has to move in with him. This one is so good and the tension is amazing. Okay, this next one is hockey romance or any other sports romances. Now I have a lot of sports romances for you, so get prepared. I am going to speed run them because I don't want to go too in depth, but here we go. The first hockey romance I have for you is actually a series. It's a series of 8 books, and that of course is the Off Campus and Briar U series. The first book in Off Campus is The Deal, and the first book in Briar U is The Chase. It is, as I said, an 8 or 9 book series if you count the anthology. This one is fantastic. It's so fun, and there's a lot of like different personalities within them, different character dynamics. I just love this series so much, and it's really, really good. Off Campus and Briar U is by Elle Kennedy. I don't think I said that, but yeah, by Elle Kennedy. Are you gonna go back down the hallway? No, you're just gonna keep sitting there. The next 2 hockey romances I have for you is another series. This is the Playing for Keeps series by Becca Mack. The first one is Consider Me. The second one is Play With Me. They are both interconnected standalone, so you can read either one you want first. This is professional hockey, and the heroes in this series are such golden retrievers. I love them. And my final hockey romance recommendation is Icebreaker. This one obviously follows a college hockey player and a college figure skater. This one is just so fun. I love it so much. Okay, and now in terms of other sports romances, I have quite a few NFL romances, American football. I also have figure skating, I have bull riding, and I have horse riding, so a nice little mix. So first up is one of my favorite sports romance series. This is the Red Zone Rival series by Candy Steiner. Fair Catch is the first one, Blindside, Quarterback Sneak, and Hail Mary. This one is NFL, and I just love the characters so much. They are all in college, and they just have this really big tight-knit friendship group, and it's just a really fun series. Then next up we have actually one of my favorite reads of the year. This is Midnight Kisses by Janine Benedict. This one is NFL, and it's actually classed as like sports romance erotica. There's not like a whole lot of plot or sports involved in this one, but our main character is a NFL player. I think he's a quarterback. So yeah, not a whole lot of plot in this one. It just kind of spice and characters and personalities. But I really did adore both main characters in this one, and so I think that's why I had such a good time with it, but I'd still really recommend it. It is very thick though, so it depends if you want the commitment to that. The next up for you I have from Look Off With Love by Mariana Zapata. This one is a figure skating romance. They are both professional figure skaters and get put together in a pairing. They are both very upset about this pairing. They're both very grumpy characters, but that does mean they have some fantastic tension, some fantastic banter. I loved the dynamic between these two. It was very fun, and I loved my other dogs walking down the hallway. Why can you guys not? Yeah, I loved following the two characters through this book. It is a slow burn, but it was really nice seeing them kind of progress throughout training and then into competitions. And then we have my horse racing recommendation. This is Off to the Races by Elsie Silver. She is a horse trainer. She's a horse trainer and he owns the horse. It's very reminiscent of like every early 2000s horse movie. And then finally we have Flawless by Elsie Silver. Sophia, Rhett is a bull rider, and Summer is his kind of like publicity agent. Okay, and now we can take a deep breath after all those sports romances. Next up we have Small Town. Now I have a lot of recommendations for this trope as well. I love a bit of small town. So my first recommendations within small town romance is actually for an author. If you love small town romances, I would really recommend Melanie Harlow, specifically the spin-off of the Cloverleaf Farm series. So we have Ignite, which has been my personal favorite in this series, Taste, which I've spoken about before, Tease, and Tempt. And I just recently finished reading Tempt, and I will speak about it a little bit more later in this video. And then I actually have a whole another series for you. This is the Edens series by Devney Perry. It has Indigo Ridge, which is the first, Juniper Hill, Garnet Flats, Jasper Vale, and Crimson River. I'm yet to read Crimson River, but this series is so fun. It follows a small town family as they kind of find their partners and settle down. The first two books also do have a little bit of romantic suspense, which is very fun, and it really adds to the plot. Next up, I have Reread Our Story, again by Kat Singleton. Spoke about this one before. This one is set in a kind of mountainous small town on a horse ranch, and I love it so much. This is probably my favorite small town romance. Then we have yet another one I've already spoken about, The Simple Wild by K.A. Tucker. This one is set in Alaska. As I said earlier, it is a mountainous, small, snowy town, and the atmosphere is just incredible. You can only get there by a plane, and I think this setting has been my favorite of like any book. Next, I actually have another like author recommendation for you. This is Elsie Silver. She is the queen of small town romance. She has her Gold Rush Ranch series and her Chestnut Springs series, both of which are like horses, cowboys, small town farms. The settings are fantastic, and she does such an amazing job of kind of immersing you in the world and developing some really lovable characters. And finally, for my small town romance recommendations, I have Always Lead Here by Mariana Zapata. This one is set in a small mountainous town, which is kind of a hot spot for like hiking and fishing. I love the atmosphere of this one so much, and Mariana Zapata really does a fantastic job of building the world. Next up on our little list of tropes is Brother's Best Friend. Now I have 4 recommendations for you. I love Brother's Best Friend. I love the like forbidden taboo. It's not really taboo, just like the forbiddenness of it, and I love the sneaking around that is often associated with it. So the first Brother's Best Friend recommendation I have for you is Play With Me by Becca Mack. This one is a professional hockey romance where they sneak around behind his back. The brother is actually the captain of the hockey team, and the guy is obviously his best friend, and there is a lot of forbiddenness sneaking around. I love this one so much. There's a lot of like moments where they're all together as a big group, and they share these like glances at each other and these like little touches, and they sneak off, and yeah, it's just really good. I'd say this one is probably the most stereotypical brother's best friend that I've read, and I loved it. Oh, I actually have 5 recommendations for you. 2 of them I haven't read though. My next brother's best friend recommendation is Promises We Meant to Keep by Monica Murphy. This one is a second chance romance where the modern day timeline is sort of less forbidden. The brother is kind of like chill, from my memory. I might be totally wrong, but I'm pretty sure the brother is like pretty chill with their relationship. So it's very realistic in that sense, I think, which is kind of nice. Then next I have another hockey romance, a college hockey romance this time. This is The Chase by Elle Kennedy, and she actually moves in with her brother's best friend. So they are like roomies, and it's great. I'm actually losing it. I feel like I've been filming for an hour. I need to speed this up. Oh my god. Now these next 2 I haven't actually read. I'm fairly certain they are both brothers' best friends. I'm like 99% positive, but 1% of me is unsure. The first one is Playing by the Rules by Monica Murphy, and the second one is Fair Catch by Candy Steiner. Okay, this next trope is another one that I had to think pretty hard about because it's not a trope that I like consciously acknowledge when I'm reading. I've definitely read more books than I like have here, but I just couldn't really think of them. I don't know. This trope is strangers to lovers, by the way, and my first recommendation is Ignite by Melanie Harlow. He moves in next door to her, and there's a little incident involving a shower and a fire alarm. Now Dex is a firefighter, so he rushes in, barges in, and finds Winnie naked, stood on a stool, flailing her towel around, trying to get the smoke alarm to turn off. Obviously that makes for a little bit of an awkward encounter, but they are strangers, and you know, it's a strangers to lovers romance. I love this book so much and it's really, really funny. The next recommendation I have for you is actually the fourth book in that same series. This is Attempt by Melanie Harlow. Our hero and heroine in this one have a spontaneous one-night stand and then just go their separate ways. That is until a wedding brings them back together, which is when they find out that he is her ex-boyfriend's dad. Then next we have Indigo Ridge by Devney Perry. This one is a little bit similar to Tempt in that they have a one-night stand and then just go their separate ways. However, a murder actually gets committed on our hero's ranch, only for Miss Heroine to show up as the new chief of police. There's a little bit of like tension between the two on that account, which I loved. I love this book so much, and it's obviously a little bit of a romantic suspense towards the end of it as well, which is very, very fun. Alrighty, our next trope is second chance romance. I'm not gonna lie, I used to be a hater of second chance romance, but it's kind of grown on me recently. So my first second chance romance recommendation for you is Rewrite Our Story by Kat Singleton. This one was the brother's best friend, childhood best friends to lovers to enemies to lovers one that I talked about earlier. I love this book so much. Please read it. Then next I have a little bit of a toxic one for you. This is The Words by AJ. Check trigger warnings on this one. It is very toxic. So the two characters in this book have a little sort of fling. I can't remember if it's a fling or if it's just a friendship. I think it is a fling in high school, only for his music career to take off, and he kind of leaves her in the dust. However, their paths do end up crossing again 4 years later, and she's brought back into his life, and yeah, there's a lot of drama in this book, a lot of back and forth. Then my next recommendation is Bloody Heart by Sophie Lark. This one is a mafia romance. Both of them are children of powerful families, and they have this kind of, I keep using the word fling, but that's what it is. They have this fling for a couple of months until her father finds out what's happening and decides to move her away from him. So they're obviously forced to cut all contact for like 10 years or something until she eventually stumbles back into his life. And this one is just incredible. Half of it is set in the past, like the first chunk is set in the past, and then the rest is set in the present, and both aspects of this book are just crafted so well. I love it so much. This one is the one that kind of convinced me to actually start liking second chance romances. And my last second chance romance recommendation for you is Garnet Flats by Devney Perry. This one is a MMA romance. He's an MMA fighter and she is a small town doctor. I'm pretty sure they were together in college, but something split them up. I can't actually, no, I can remember what, but I'm not telling you because of a spoiler. Yeah, this one is really, really angsty, and he kind of like comes back into her life to try and win her over. Lots of angst in this one. Very angsty. The next trope that I have for you is dark romance. I am quite the enjoyer of dark romance, and so my first recommendation for you is kind of another author recommendation, and that is Cora Riley, specifically her Kimura Chronicles series and Sweet Temptation, if you're wanting just like a little taster of her work. This one is Arranged Marriage, Dark Mafia, and yeah, it's just kind of like a summary of all of her mafia work. It's I don't even know how to describe it. It's a very good sample if you're not wanting to dive straight into a big series, because this one is standalone. Did any of that make sense? I'm not sure. And again, I have another author recommendation for you. I would recommend to you Sophie Lark, her Brutal Birthright series and also her Kingmaker series up there. Both of them are fantastic. Both of them are mafia. They are a little bit of on the lighter side of mafia, which I think is good. The Brutal Birthright series is set in Chicago and follows kind of like 3 different families in Chicago, I think. And then the Kingmaker series is like a mafia college, which is very, very fun. I love it so much. And the action, Sophie Lark knows how to write an action scene. Oh my god, I'm so excited to recommend these 2 books because I haven't recommended them before. This is Haunting Adeline. This is Haunting Adeline and Hunting Adeline by H.D. Carlton. These 2 are a stalker romance duet. They are fantastic, very, very dark. Please check trigger warnings. I know some people don't like checking trigger warnings because it can spoil aspects of the book, but just trust me on this one, you'll want to check trigger warnings. My next dark romance recommendations for you is the Boston Underworld series by A. Zavarelli. The first book is Crow, which is buried somewhere over there, and the second book is Reaper. I love this series so much. I've only read the first 2, but they're really, really good. Most of the books in this series are under 300 pages, so they're very fast-paced, engaging, fun, action-packed, and yeah, they're just like really easy reads and very, very fun. And then finally, for my dark romance recommendations, we have a classic. This is the Mindfuck series by S.T. Abbey. This one is incredible. It's about a serial killer and her FBI profiler. She is the serial killer and he is the FBI man. FBI man? FBI agent. This is fantastic, but check trigger warnings on this one. It is, oh my god, it's amazing. Okay, our second to last trope is teacher student. Now I've only read one of these and that is Lessons in Corruption by Gianna Darling. So she is his teacher and he is her student. He is also the son of the local motorcycle club's leader, and so she gets wound up in that by proxy. It's very, very fun and I can't wait to read the next one in this series, which is about the motorcycle club leader. Sounds very good. And now I sort of have a second recommendation for student teacher, but it's a little bit of a different interpretation. I'm gonna recommend to you my current read. This is Daughter of No Worlds by Carissa Broadbent. Now this one sort of has the teacher student trope because our main character has to complete an apprenticeship in order to like become more magical. I don't really know. I'm literally this much into the book and the plot point has just been set up, but as far as I'm aware, it is going to be a kind of student-teacher dynamic. And our last trope is tearjerkers. Now, I'm not a big crier in books, but I suppose I'll just kind of list off the ones that have made me cry. I won't tell you why because obviously there's going to be big spoilers, but I'll tell you like the extent of my tears, I guess. Are you right? He's so noisy. He won't pick up his feet, honestly. So the first book that has made me cry, well, not the first book that's made me cry, but like the first book I have for you that has made me cry is Rewrite Our Story by Kat Singleton. I had watery eyes. There might have been a tear, but this one, it was definitely sad. Then the next one for you I have is The Simple Wild by K.A. Tucker. There is tear stains in this book is all I'm gonna say. This one had me bawling my eyes out for the last like 20 pages of the book. It really broke my heart. The last book, this one I finished not that long ago, so it's still affecting me. That's Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. I was violently sobbing. Oh my god, it's giving me like I'm reliving the trauma right now. Like, this one broke my heart. This one made me really sad and I feel really bad for ending the video on that note because it's awful to end the video on tearjerkers. Why did I decide to do that? It's still a really good book. Like, please read this. I gave it 5 stars. I made a whole spoiler-free reading vlog on it because it was fantastic, but there's just a really heartbreaking moment. And with that and the chaotic mess that is now my bed, we have come to the end of this video. I really hope you've found some new recommendations. I cannot believe I just spent an hour and 20 minutes giving you all of those recommendations. I'm honestly gonna be totally honest, I'm feeling a little bit brain dead now, but you know, it's for the good of the people. I've got to help you guys find some good book recommendations. That is what I'm here to do. But yeah, thank you so much for watching today's video. I really hope you found some new book recommendations. I hope I managed to provide you with some new books. And yeah, if you did enjoy today's video, don't forget to like, comment and subscribe, and I will hopefully see you in the next one. Bye!